All right, today we're jumping into one of the biggest, most persistent challenges in all of medicine. We're going to go deep into the science of why cancer can be so incredibly hard to beat, and more importantly, uncover what researchers now think is its ultimate weakness. Okay, let's get into it. This is the question that just haunts everyone. Patients, their families, doctors. A person goes through these grueling treatments, right? The tumors shrink. Sometimes they even seem to vanish completely, only to come roaring back months or even years later. And a lot of the time, it's even more aggressive. So why? What is going on?
For the longest time, the main idea was pretty simple. We just weren't killing all the cancer cells. But it turns out the story is way more nuanced than that. The latest science is pointing to a very specific culprit. See, it's not just about the number of cells we leave behind. It's all about the type of cells. We're talking about a tiny, super elusive population of cells that are basically the secret engine driving the whole disease.
So let's meet these masterminds. They go by the name cancer stem cells, or CSSs for short. And I'm telling you, understanding what these cells do is completely flipping the script on how we think about fighting cancer. A cancer stem cell is, well, pretty much what it sounds like. It's a cancer cell that acts like a stem cell. It's this rare, really powerful cell living inside a tumor that has two unique and frankly dangerous abilities. First, it can create perfect copies of itself, and second, it can pump out all the other regular cancer cells that make up the bulk of the tumor. This image here does a fantastic job of showing you how this works. The best way to think about a CSC is like the queen bee of a hive. As you can see, it can go through what's called self-renewal to make more queen bees, that is, more cancer stem cells. But it can also differentiate, creating that huge population of worker bees, the regular tumor cells. And here's the crucial part. You can kill off all the worker bees, but if that queen survives, she can rebuild the entire hive from scratch. So let's just lock in these two superpowers, because they're everything. On one hand, you've got self-renewal. This makes sure the supply of these mastermind cells never, ever runs out. And on the other hand, you've got differentiation, which is what actually builds the tumor. It's this 1-2 punch that lets cancer not only grow, but also come back again and again and again. So the big question is, how do these cells manage to survive treatments that wipe out billions of other cancer cells? Well, it's not by accident. They have a really sophisticated survival playbook. They don't just sit there, they actively shape their environment to protect themselves.
Basically, they build themselves a fortress. And this fortress has a name, the tumor microenvironment, or TME. It's not just a place. It's this whole complex ecosystem of cells and signaling molecules and blood vessels that the CSCs actually manipulate for their own survival. It is their base of operations. And this right here is one of their cleverest tricks. CSCs engineer these little pockets inside the tumor that have very, very low oxygen levels. That condition is called hypoxia, and it basically acts like an invisible shield. Why? Well, think about it. A lot of chemo and radiation treatments work by creating these damaging oxygen molecules that kill cells. But if you're hiding out in a low oxygen zone, those treatments just don't work as well. It's an incredible survival tactic. And inside that fortress, they have their own command and control system. This diagram gives you a peek into the crazy complex web of signaling pathways they use. You can think of these like internal communication networks, or computer code that tells the cell what to do, everything from make more of me to resist that drug. When these pathways get hijacked and switched on, they are just constantly telling the CSC to survive and multiply. And what's just wild is what these pathways are. You see these names here, right? Wnt, Notch, Hedgehog. These aren't random. These are ancient, incredibly powerful pathways that our bodies use to literally build us from scratch when we're embryos. In cancer, these master builder programs get stolen and turned back on, telling the cell to grow and survive like it's building a new organ. It's a total perversion of a natural process.
Okay, so we've seen how they survive. Now let's look at the really devastating consequences of this playbook, how cancer actually takes over and spreads through the body.
This flowchart here connects all the dots perfectly. You see the core abilities we talked about, like self-renewal, but notice that other word there, quiescence. This is another key trick in their playbook. It's basically a state of cellular hibernation. And as you can see, these abilities lead directly to the two outcomes that we all fear the most: drug resistance and metastasis, the spread of cancer to totally new places in the body.
So let's just break that down really quick. On the drug-resistant side, most chemotherapies are designed to kill cells that are dividing really fast, but a CSC can just hit pause.
It can enter that dormant, quiescent state and basically hide from the treatment. Then, once the coast is clear, it wakes up and just rebuilds the whole tumor. And then there's metastasis. The CSCs are literally the seeds of new tumors. They can break off, get into the bloodstream, and just set up shop in distant organs like the lungs or the liver or the brain, starting this whole nightmare over again.
Of course, a huge challenge for scientists has always been, how do you even find these cells? They're so rare, but we're getting way smarter about it. We look for specific proteins, called biomarkers, that are on the cell. This table gives some really helpful analogies. A marker like CD44 is like a name badge that screams, "Hi, I'm a cancer stem cell." Then you've got proteins inside, like OCT4 and SOX2, that are like the cell's internal how-to manual for being a stem cell. And then there's stuff like ABCG2, which is incredible. It acts like a tiny pump that physically pushes chemotherapy drugs right back out of the cell. Okay, so I know this all sounds pretty grim, but here's where the story takes a turn for the better. By identifying these mastermind cells and finally understanding their playbook, we've also uncovered cancer's biggest vulnerability. For the first time, we can actually think about targeting the root of the entire problem. And that is exactly what is happening in labs all over the world. The scientific community sees this not just as a problem, but as a massive opportunity. This quote from the research really captures that feeling. It's a rallying cry. The goal isn't just to shrink tumors anymore. The goal is to wipe out the very cells that build them in the first place. And this is the key takeaway. The whole future of cancer therapy is about being precise. It's about designing drugs that can shut down those hijacked Wnt and Notch pathways, or they can hunt for that CD44 name badge and kill the CSC, even when it's asleep. You see, the goal is to cut the weed at the root, not just keep mowing the lawn and watching it grow back.
So we end on this really powerful thought. For decades, we've been fighting the part of the cancer we can see, the big, fast-growing tumor. But what if the real fight, the one that truly matters, is against this tiny, hidden population of cells? Because if cancer stem cells really are the root of it all, then therapies designed specifically to destroy them, well, they might not just be a better treatment. They might just be the key to a true, lasting cure.